Hey everyone. So we're constantly hearing that AI is changing everything, right? But what does that actually mean for your day-to-day work? Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to cut through all that noise. We're going to build a really practical toolkit that you can use to make your job easier and, frankly, more productive, starting today.
So let's just start with the biggest question on everyone's mind. Beyond all the buzzwords and the hype, how can AI really help you in your day-to-day job? Like, what are the tangible, actual benefits that we can put to use right now?
You know, the smartest way to think about AI at work is to see it as this powerful toolkit. Seriously, it's not here to replace you. It's here to augment what you already do. And just like any professional tool, its real power is only unlocked when you know which one to pick for the job and how to use it with skill.
Okay, so to get started, we first need to understand what we're actually working with. See, AI isn't just one single thing. It really comes in a few different flavors, and each one is suited for totally different kinds of tasks.
Let's break down the three main types you're actually going to use. First up, you've got generative AI. This is the creator. Think of it as your brainstormer. It can draft an email for you, write some code, you name it. Next is machine learning, and this is the predictor. This is like your data analyst, sifting through years of past data to forecast future sales. And finally, there's simple automation. That's the doer. This is your reliable assistant that handles all those repetitive tasks, like filling out forms based on a set of rules. So just remember, the creator, the predictor, and the doer.
All right, quick gut check. Let's say a system analyzes 3 years of sales data to predict what's going to happen next month. Which type of AI are we talking about here?
If you said machine learning, you are spot on. It's not creating brand new content, and it's not just following a simple if-then rule. It's learning from patterns in old data to make a really educated guess about the future. That's ML in a nutshell.
Okay, so we know the types of AI. Now let's get into what is probably the single most important skill for using them well, giving clear instructions. It really all comes down to mastering the prompt.
The golden rule here is so simple. Better input equals better output. Garbage in, garbage out, right? So a really great prompt is built on 4 pillars. You always start with the task. What do you want it to do? Then you add context. Who is this for and why? Next, you set constraints, like word count or tone, to give it some boundaries. And finally, whenever you can, provide examples to show the AI exactly what a great result looks like.
Now, let's look at a super common mistake. We've all done it. You're in a hurry, so you just type something like this. Write a summary of the quarterly report. I mean, it's short, it's simple, but it's way, way too vague. The AI has to make a ton of assumptions to fill in all the blanks you left.
And what do you get from a prompt like that? A really generic summary that probably misses all the details your boss actually cares about. And then you end up having to rewrite most of it yourself, which completely defeats the purpose and wastes the very time you were trying to save.
The secret here, really, is iteration. Don't expect to get it perfect on the first shot. The process is a simple loop. You draft a prompt, you check the output, you see what's missing, and then you go back and refine your prompt with more detail. Each time you do that cycle, you get closer and closer to exactly what you want. So, let's rebuild that weak prompt using our blueprint. Okay, the task is now summarize in 5 bullet points. The context, it's for senior leadership and focus on sales growth. And the constraints are keep it formal and under 150 words. I mean, that is a world of difference in clarity, right? And that is the payoff. With a powerful prompt, you get a sharp, relevant summary that's perfectly tailored to your audience. You get exactly what you need, and it only costs you a few extra seconds of thought up front.
So how do we actually apply this stuff? Let's look at some of the most common tasks you probably do every single week and see how these prompting skills make a real practical difference.
Think of this as a little cheat sheet. When you're asking for a summary, always specify the length and the key topics you care about. That keeps it from just rambling on. For emails, focus on the one single goal or action you need from the reader. It just keeps the message really sharp. When you're generating reports, give it the section headings yourself. That provides a clear structure for the AI to follow. And for any kind of analysis, be super explicit about which variables you want it to look at. This level of structure is really the key to getting good, consistent results.
Now, using these tools powerfully also means using them responsibly. Being a smart AI user isn't just about getting good outputs. It's about knowing the potential pitfalls and, more importantly, how to avoid them.
There are really 3 big risks you got to watch out for. First is misinformation, which is when the AI just makes stuff up. You'll sometimes hear this called hallucinations.
Then there's bias, where the output reflects skewed patterns from its training data. And finally, over-reliance, which is where we just get a little lazy and stop double-checking the work. The key thing here is that these aren't just abstract ideas. They can show up as made-up facts in your report or a team that stops thinking critically.
So, how do we protect ourselves from this? It's simple. We always keep a human in the loop. You need to treat a human review as absolutely mandatory anytime an AI output involves budget numbers, when it's going to external clients or stakeholders, if it makes any unsupported claims, or touches any sensitive topic. Just remember, the AI is your co-pilot, but you are always the final checkpoint.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've got the concepts, we've got the skills, and we've got the safety checks. Now let's build a simple, repeatable workflow that you can start using like tomorrow.
And it all comes together in this really simple 4-step workflow. Step 1 is input. You gather your materials and define your goal. Step 2 is the AI step. You use a strong, specific prompt to get a first draft. Step 3 is the crucial human step. You review it, fact-check it, and refine it. And step 4 is the final output, a polished, human-approved piece of work ready to go. So that's it. That's your toolkit for using AI to really boost your productivity. The concepts are simple, the skills are totally learnable, and the potential here is enormous. So the only question left is, when you think about your own daily tasks, what's the first process you're going to improve?